How's it going, everyone? Cody, guys, back again, dropping out another video. Right, guys, going to do a video today on, as you can tell from the title, suicides in prison. The reasons why, they're on the increase, why people might seek suicide as a way out, and just the misery that's within prisons and stuff. Right, to be honest. Right, guys. So obviously, been in prison a couple of times. Been out now about 4 or 5 months. And from my experiences with inside prison, it's making me want to speak out and try and raise awareness of what's going on, and hopefully change the prison system for the better. So obviously you've got many different types of prisoners within prison. You've got IPP prisoners, in prison for public protection or indeterminate public protection. That's like people that were deemed to be dangerous in society. It was abolished a couple of years ago, but there's still there's still several thousand within prisons and stuff, right? You've got remand prisoners, people that have not been found guilty of an offence yet. They might be they're on remand to stop further crimes being committed while on bail, say like there's a case coming up and you could intimidate the witnesses and things like that. You've got convicted prisoners who've obviously been convicted of crimes and stuff and been sentenced to prison. You've got YOs, young offenders, yeah. You've got VPs, vulnerable prisoners, nonces, rapists, bacons, right? You got female prisoners as well, and like I say, with all different prisons, you got a lot of veterans, former soldiers that are in prison as well. About 8,000, I think, at the last count. And you know what? Like I say, prisons. Anyone that thinks that prison's a holiday camp and you live in luxury and every cell's got a PlayStation and every cell's got a telephone and you've got Sky TV and all the rest of the mythical things that people seem to think that goes on in prison. Absolutely ridiculous. Prisons are places of pure misery, guys. Low staffing levels. Leads to long periods locked behind your door, because you obviously, when you're banged up 22 23 hours a day, depending on what prison you're in, every prison's got a different regime and stuff, right? We're very social people and we're very social creatures and stuff, and like being locked in your cell for 23 hours a day, right, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for several years, right, depending on how long your sentence is and stuff, it's going to lead on to severe mental health problems, right? Anxiety, depression, and you know what? These are things, right? There's a lot of people that enter prison that have already got mental health problems, but haven't been mentally health assessed or have not actually been diagnosed, right? And you've got people in prison with autism, disabilities, people that are short-sighted, people that have got that are blind or nearly blind, or the deaf and everything else. And you put these people into the prison system and stuff, and there's not much help. The staff are not mentally health trained. Just because you might have a disability, when you go to court, right, the courts don't discriminate white, black, gay, transgender, fucking mental health, no mental health. They don't take it. They do not discriminate. They just throw everyone in prison. Right? Some people on silly short sentences, which I think is ridiculous. People seek suicide. Right? Imagine being that low. Right? Prisons are miserable places anyway. But imagine being that low. Right? That you don't see any other way. Right? There's no prospect. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. People think that prisons are places of rehabilitation, right? Not punishment, but rehabilitation. Obviously, never been in prison doesn't go on, guys. Right? Very rare. You might be lucky to get on a like a street soccer course or something like that. But a lot of people in prison have got learning difficulties, mental health problems, whether diagnosed or undiagnosed. The staff are not mentally health trained, and like I say, it drives people to despair. So that they actually think, you know what, like there's no other way for me to get out of this predicament, right, than to either slash up and bleed out, right, string up, right, hang themselves, right. And it's a sad state of affairs. On average, once every 3 days, right, a prisoner leaves prison in a body bag through suicide, right. It's way, way, way too much, guys. Like I say, if you think that the staff are constantly walking around your cells, looking through your flap to make sure you're alive and everything, doesn't go on, right? The only time you see a screw is if you're being pulled out to go on a nick-in, or you've got a visit or roll count, right? That's the only time that a screw will come to your cell, right? And like I say, if you're asleep, right, whether you've died of a drug overdose or whatever, right, if you're in bed and they think you're asleep, they just crack on. They just, all right, there's one body there. They don't knock on your door and open your door and make sure you're all right. Like I say, prison officers and prisoners are suffering, guys, right? Many prison officers away from work, because of what they see and what they experience and stuff, turn to drink, right? Prisoners, like you get the odd prisoner that might brew hooch up and stuff, but it's very rare, guys, like within prison and stuff. A lot of people take drugs as a coping mechanism, right? And then through that, they overdose, or they purposely overdose. But just the death and despair and the misery, right, for prisoners and prisoners' families alike, you can't put it into words, to be honest. It's beyond words, right? But just imagine leaving prison, right, in a body bag, right? Like, you don't see any other way. You've hit rock bottom, right? You might not have even told your other friends on the wing, right? And then you string up, or you take your own life. Prison I couldn't think of a more unpleasant place to end your life than prison. You know what I mean? And obviously then it has a detrimental effect on your family and stuff like that. Prisoners, families, prisoners, former prisoners are all screaming out for changes to take place and reform to take place within the Ministry of Justice, right? The Ministry of Justice are now trying to gag the Prison Officers Association from speaking out, because there's a lot. I'm very critical of HMP screws, right, because they swap the personality for a set of keys. But you've also got a lot of good screws within prisons as well. I've been in private prisons, I've been in HMP, right? Private prisons, right? The screws are a lot better with you, but also the company are getting fat and rich off prisoners suffering and stuff. They get incentives and money for every bed they fill. So they're getting fat and rich. The top brass of these companies like Sodexo, G4S, are getting fat and rich off people's suffering and people's misery and stuff like that. I don't think it's right. While I've been in prison, I've seen people slash up. I've seen people covered in shit. I've seen people with severe mental health problems chanting and kicking off. And there was one guy a nurse came out of his cell, and she was like holding her mouth, and he'd shit up, right? And he'd actually used his shit as hair gel, right? And like I say, at the time you laugh, but half an hour later, you sat in your cell thinking, I shouldn't have been laughing at that. It's crazy. But then other prisoners target you and stuff like that. In prison, right, if you're mentally weak or something like that, you're going to get targeted. You've got good inmates that will put their arm around the lads and try and give them words of encouragement and try and pick them up and help them and give them the light at the end of the tunnel. Give them that ear to listen to the problems and stuff. You've also got listeners within the prison as well. But like I say, you've got people that threaten to slash up and threaten suicide, right, to get like a TV or to get their own way. Then you've got actual genuine cases who don't speak about it, and they're the dangerous ones. They're the ones that actually go through with it and seek suicide as a way out and stuff. Like I say, when you're in prison, guys, whether I don't care how big or how bad you think you are, right, at one point or another, or several times or numerous times, right, while you're in prison, it will bring you to your knees mentally, emotionally, or even physically, right? Prison does funny things to a man. And like I say, some people are stronger than others, and it's not even about strength or anything like that. It's just, say you're in prison, you've been sentenced to years, right, you lose your flat, then your family connections break down, right? There's no light at the end of the tunnel. When you get out, you've got nowhere to go. You kicked out the door with £46. The prospect of that, right, scares people. Prison, the thought of prison, being in prison, scares people. Prisons are very violent, volatile places. And 1 minute you can have good order, and the next minute it can descend into absolute chaos. Everyone in prison's fighting their own personal battle, whether it be mentally, emotionally, physically, psychologically. Like I say, there's a lot of people, you've got a lot of people in prison, right? And they've all got different issues, they've all got different needs, they've all got different things that make them tick. Some have got anger problems, some are emotionally fragile, some have got, like I say, mental health issues, some have got personality disorders, some people have got autism, some people are depressed, right? And prison, all that prison does, right, if you go to prison with a mental health problem or a disability or anything like that, any problems you've got in prison get magnified by them, by the walls, by the bars. When you're in prison, the worst thing you can do to someone with mental health issues is they're going on, a lot of people in prison are going unmedicated or untreated because they've not been diagnosed, right? So they're then taking other illicit drugs like legal highs, new psychoactive substances, other illicit drugs, spice and everything else, right? And like I say, then they're locked behind the door and stuff, and all you do is you think and you play over your life and your problems and your issues. And then you might get out for an hour a day, and in that hour you might have been bullied, or you might have got a shit ride from the screws, or you might just be having a down day. Family ties, for those that with family ties and stuff on the outside, right? Honest to God, you cannot put a price on keeping a connection with a family. If you've got a loved one in prison, right, you cannot put a price on how much and how important the role is of the family or the supportive network to a prisoner whilst he's inside. It can literally be the difference between life and death. Now, example, right? I've been in prison with a lot of people, obviously, and stuff, and I've had it where one of the lads was really down, was contemplating suicide, and then he rang his missus, and she cheered him up and stuff, and told him how great things were going to be when he got out. And he didn't want to commit suicide no more. He had a path. He had something to look forward to. Right? I've heard other people that have been down and stuff, and then they've gone on a visit and they found out that the missus, because they've just gone to prison, the missus is pregnant, right? Changes your whole life, changes your whole outlook. But imagine if you didn't have that connection, say you didn't have that family support network, say through your criminality or through a bad childhood, right, that you didn't have the family connections there, right? They then have got nothing to look forward to, and they could then seek suicide as a way out, or self-harm, because then they want to swap the psychological pain for physical pain. So, and like I say, prison just, I've seen people covered in their own shit, slashing up, smashing themselves up, fighting with screws, biting themselves, wanting to string up, attempting to string up, attacking each other, attacking screws, attacking themselves. Just the things you see in prison you wouldn't believe unless you'd actually been there. And I'm gutted that people leave prison in body bags, guys. There's no way, no other place in the world, right, you would want to leave prison than in a body bag. It's the most unforgiving place ever. Doesn't discriminate whether you, like I say, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, anything. It does not discriminate. Prison will affect us all, right? And do you know what, right? Do you know who suffers a lot as well? Prisoners' families on the outside. They ride the roller coaster of prison with us and stuff. And like I say, just imagine feeling that low and that down and that depressed, right? That you've got 1,000, like depending on what prison you're in, you've got about 1,400 people less depending on what category prison you're in and all that stuff, right? But yet you'd never felt so alone, right? And like I say, people stringing up and stuff like that through the despair and lack of education, lack of skills, lack of training, because they're not being medicated for the problems, they're not being diagnosed, the staff are not mentally ill trained, and everything else, guys. Serious failings within the Ministry of Justice when it comes to the care and mental health of prisoners on a massive scale. You can't even put it into proportions, guys. But the fact that once every 3 days that somebody's leaving prison in a body bag breaks my heart, right? It could have been me, it could have been you, your loved one. At some time or other, you will contemplate suicide in prison, or you will honestly, it goes on. You get that depressed, you start to think, well, what happens if I wasn't here? I'm a waster. I've got no qualifications. I've got no training. When I get out, I'm going to be homeless. I've got no family. I've got no structure. I've got no kids. I've got nothing to look forward to. There's no light. That downward spiral of despair and misery, like I say, is magnified by prison. And then people think, you know what? The world would be a better place if I wasn't in it. and they string up, or they slash up, or they overdose. And it's tragic, guys, and my thoughts and prayers go out to anybody that's lost someone to suicide in prison. If you go to prison and you feel down, please speak to somebody, guys. Don't seek suicide as a way out. Don't let the system win. But yeah, I'm going to leave this video here, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Speak to y'all soon.